Have you ever finished something big, maybe a project or a presentation, even just a tough conversation, and thought, man, I wish I could do that again, but better?
Oh, absolutely. It's such a common feeling, isn't it?
Totally. It's this human thing, wanting to learn from experiences, the good stuff and the bad.
Yeah.
But how do you actually capture those lessons, like properly, so you actually do get better?
Yeah. And just going through it isn't enough, is it? You need a way to really unpack it, to understand why it went down the way it did. And that really is where debriefing comes in. It sounds maybe a bit formal, but it's this powerful idea, though maybe misunderstood sometimes. It's a structured way to learn from what just happened.
Right. And that's exactly what we're diving into today, the power of doing debriefing effectively. Our guide for this is Gareth Lock. He's a former Royal Air Force veteran, 25 years experience. And his presentation is the basis for our deep dive. What really struck me, and I think you'll find this interesting too, is how he approaches it. It's not primarily about safety.
Which you might expect.
Exactly. It's through the lens of performance. Can you tell us a bit more about that, why that difference matters so much?
Yeah, it's a really fundamental shift. So Locke argues that high performance actually produces safety. Safety isn't the number one goal you aim for directly. It's more like a byproduct of getting really good at what you do. So if you're laser focused on building a shared understanding in the team, always pushing for excellence, well, safety tends to follow naturally. It's quite a powerful way to reframe things for any team, really.
Interesting.
So our mission today, for you listening, is to really get under the skin of what good debriefing looks like, why it's so vital for unlocking that hidden knowledge, and give you some practical stuff you can actually use, whether you're in some high-stakes job or just trying to improve personally.
Okay, let's unpack that performance over safety idea a bit more, because it really does challenge how many of us think about getting better, right?
It does.
He worked with teams on this shared mental model, encouraging continuous learning. So how does he actually define learning in that context?
Well, for Locke, learning isn't just, knowing a new fact. It's realizing that something needs to change.
Okay. The change part is key.
Exactly. He says a lesson isn't really learned until you've done something with that realization. You've put something in place, tried it out, experimented, seen the result.
Right.
And crucially, even if it fails, quote unquote, that's still massive learning, because now you know what doesn't work. That guides your next move. It's about integrating knowledge through action, not just collecting it.
So it's like knowing isn't enough.
Yeah.
Wanting isn't enough. You got to do. Is that what he's getting at with this need for experimenting, even failing? He uses that quote, right? Knowledge is not enough.
We got to apply. Willing is not enough. We must do. Precisely. It's about taking ideas off the drawing board and into the real world. Try them out.
See what sticks.
Yeah. If they flop, fine. That's data. But it's the active engagement, the discovery. That's where the real learning happens.
Makes total sense. Okay. So if we're talking about doing things, learning from outcomes, where does feedback fit in? We all know feedback's important, but Locke seems to suggest it's like a system requirement.
Oh, totally. Effective systems need effective feedback. They just can't function properly without it. He mentions Jens Rasmussen's work.
A big name in safety science.
Right. And Rasmussen's framework basically says you need clear guidance coming down from the top, but you also need rich feedback coming up from the bottom, from the people doing the work. That's how systems adapt and improve.
But the way feedback is given is often the problem.
That's the snag, yeah.
And this is where he talks about the shit sandwich.
Yep, that old classic.
That start nice, say the bad bit, nice routine, love the hat, face is ugly, but hey, nice top.
Yeah, exactly. It's so predictable, isn't it? People just brace themselves, they hear the compliment and think, okay, here it comes.
And they switch off. It totally blocks any real learning.
It's such a common trap. And it fails because real learning, real discovery, often comes from seeing the same situation from completely different angles. Locke points out this challenge with hierarchy, right? Leaders often genuinely don't know what's happening on the ground floor.
Yeah.
But equally, the folks on the ground don't always get the bigger picture, the top level pressures or context.
So you need to bridge that gap.
You do.
Yeah.
Through conversations, through sharing stories. A lot of informal learning happens just through talking and sharing narratives.
And it connects to how we function socially too, right? He mentioned social conformance. People just adopting behaviors without knowing why.
Yeah, like his example of people in a waiting room. One person starts standing up when a beep sounds for no reason they know.
And then others just copy them.
Exactly. New people come in, see others doing it, and they just follow along. Power distance, authority.
Yeah.
It all plays into why we conform, sometimes without even thinking.
Wow. That's kind of scary.
And you see it amplified today with social media, right? Creating these echo chambers. The algorithms feed you more of what you already like or agree with.
Making it harder to find different views.
Which is why you have to actively seek out different perspectives, not just go with the flow.
Okay, so if we're influenced like that, and often don't fully get why we do things, how does that play out at work?
This brings us to another really important idea from Locke. This gap between workers imagined and workers done.
Yes, this is crucial. Workers imagined is like the official version, how the procedures say work should happen, often driven by compliance.
The rulebook version.
Pretty much. But workers done is the reality. How people actually get the job done on the ground. It's messy, adaptive, often really ingenious.
Like that nuclear power station example he gives with beer pump handles.
Exactly. These engineers had control buttons that looked almost identical but did vastly different critical things. So they stuck beer pump handles on some to tell them apart.
That's brilliant. It's pure creativity, adaptation. It goes way beyond just following the rules. It's about making the system actually work in practice. And building on that, he really hammers home the need to understand the motivation behind actions that might look unsafe at first glance.
Like the Panama example.
Yeah, the maritime shipping company. This worker walked underneath a massive train section being moved on bogies just to secure it faster. The COO was horrified, understandably. But Locke's point was, look, he's trying to get the job done. These behaviors that seem risky often come from trying to hit a target, maybe money, production quotas, ego, or just the ingrained culture. You have to understand the why.
So, okay, you have this individual learning, the street smarts on the ground. How does that benefit the whole organization? Locke talks about turning lead into gold.
Yeah, that's his metaphor.
Yeah.
Taking that ground level ingenuity, those individual insights, and translating them into real positive results for the organization. That's the holy grail.
Making the informal learning pay off.
Exactly. Whether it's commercial success, better safety, whatever the metric is, it's about harnessing that practical wisdom.
And this seems to lead right back to the core idea of debriefing, reflection.
Absolutely. He has this great line. You can't reflect in the moment until you've reflected on it.
Say that again.
You can't reflect in the moment until you've reflected on it. When you're busy doing something complex, you usually don't have the mental space, the bandwidth for deep reflection then and there.
Right. You're just focused on the task.
Exactly. The deep learning, the processing of why things happen, that happens later, through what psychologists call metacognition, thinking about your thinking.
Ah, okay. Thinking about thinking. That's where the learning sinks in.
That's the space, yeah. It allows you to process why you did what you did or why things unfolded in a certain way.
So if that's where the learning happens, the debrief is just the structured way to do that reflection.
Pretty much. It's formalizing that thinking about thinking process,
Yeah.
giving it dedicated time and a framework.
It reminds me of planning. Eisenhower's quote, right? Plans are useless.
Planning is essential. Exactly. Planning helps us think through the what ifs, right? What might go wrong, how we prepare.
Yeah.
Debriefing is the flip side. It helps us understand what was and, crucially, why it happened that way. Both are vital for getting better.
And it's not just for disasters, is it? That's a common myth.
Definitely not. Look at the examples Locke gives. The Blue Angels flight teams. They do super detailed debriefs after every single flight.
Wow, every time.
Every time. Or Red Flag, the military air combat exercise. They review individual flight data, then the teams debrief, then the whole formation debriefs. It's layers.
In Special Forces, F1 teams, trauma teams.
Yeah, they often do quick ones, maybe 15 minutes right after an event. In the thick of it, almost. It's baked into how high-performing teams operate.
And that surgeon's story is amazing, too.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
This chief surgeon takes a diving course, sees they debrief, and thinks, why don't we do this in my operating theater?
So he just starts doing it.
Yep. He said, it's my train set, I can do what I want. And the learning they got from those OR debriefs was apparently phenomenal. It just shows you can implement this anywhere, really.
Okay, so what actually makes a debrief work? What are the essential parts?
Locke breaks it down. First, and maybe most important, psychological safety.
Right, feeling safe to speak up.
But it's not just about being nice, you know? He says it's about genuinely caring for each other. That allows for what Kim Scott calls radical candor.
Being direct but caring.
Exactly. And having mutual accountability towards the shared goals. People have to feel safe enough to be totally honest, even critical, without fearing backlash.
It makes sense. What else? Time.
Dedicated time. Yeah, super important. He calls it a non-discretionary activity.
Meaning you have to do it.
Right. Like in aviation, the mission wasn't over until the debrief was done. Even if it was short, 10, 15 minutes, the context tells you how much time you need. Could be a minute, could be hours.
Okay, safety. Time. Is there a structure?
Yep. A clear structure helps a lot. Usually involves setting the goals for the debrief first, creating that safe space we talked about, then comparing the plan, the workers imagined, with what actually happened, the workers done.
And figuring out the why behind the differences.
Exactly. And then finally identifying what was learned, both for individuals and the team.
And how you frame the discussion must matter, too.
So it should always be positive framing. Focus on what went well and why, that's key, and then what needs to improve and how.
So it's not just problem finding.
Not at all. Debriefs aren't just for screw-ups. There's always room to improve, even slightly. Or sometimes it's just about celebrating a win and understanding why it was a win so you can repeat it.
And honesty. Accountability. Especially in those teams like the Blue Angels.
Oh, yeah. He mentioned how pilots in those display teams are encouraged to call out their own mistakes first.
Really? Why?
Because chances are everyone else saw it anyway.
Huh. Good point.
So admitting it yourself just fosters that culture of honesty across the whole team. Shared responsibility for getting better.
He really demonstrates this stuff with that Lego plane exercise he runs, doesn't he?
He does. It's designed to bring out real behaviors. Limited instructions, time pressure, puts people under a bit of stress.
What kinds of things does he see?
All sorts. Teams trying to reverse engineer the model because the instructions are vague. He jokes the safety compliance types immediately start looking for detailed instructions.
Naturally.
Others might struggle with coordinating, or maybe no clear leader emerges. You see common team issues play out in miniature. It reveals a lot.
And the debrief after the Lego building must be where the gold is.
That's the key part. He stresses getting specific. Don't just say communication was good. Ask how. Was role clarity good? Did everyone know who was doing what? Make it concrete.
Tangible things you can work on.
Exactly. And he uses that brilliant question. Were we good or were we lucky?
Ooh, I like that. Forces you to look past just the outcome.
Right. Did we succeed because of our process or despite it? And using things like a behavioral marker scheme helps too.
Love that.
It's just a structured way to observe and talk about specific team behaviors, communication, leadership, decision-making, that sort of thing. It focuses the debrief on how the team worked together, not just the technical results.
So these debriefs sound super powerful, but are they just for pilots and surgeons? Or can anyone use them?
No, definitely not just for them. They can be applied much more broadly. You've got technical debriefs, sure, but also personal ones.
Like for yourself?
Yeah, just reflecting. One thing I did well, one thing I need to do more of, one thing less of. Simple but effective. Then there are team debriefs focused on non-technical skills.
How do those work?
They might use techniques like one-too-many, a big group splits into smaller ones for deeper discussion, or a goldfish bowl where a few people discuss while others watch, then the watchers add their thoughts.
Interesting techniques.
Yeah, and instructional teams often use video playback in their debriefs, following a clear framework. Loads of applications.
So versatile. How do you decide when you really need one? Is there a trigger?
There's a useful model for that. The Mission Critical Team Institute calls it the TOPS model. TOPS.
Okay.
It's simple. You look at the outcome, was it good or not good? And were there surprises, yes or no?
Outcome and surprises. Got it.
So if you had lots of surprises, even if the outcome was okay, that's a prime time for a debrief. Or even if the outcome was surprisingly good and you don't know why.
Capture the unexpected learning, good or bad.
Exactly. Why did things deviate from the plan or expectations? That's where the richest learning often lies.
So wrapping it up, what are the big payoffs from doing this consistently?
Well, you find blind spots you never knew you had. You make learning explicit people actually state what they discovered, individually and as a team.
Leads to fewer surprises down the road, presumably.
Hopefully. And critically, you develop a much better shared mental model. Everyone involved has a clearer, more aligned understanding of what's going on. Doesn't mean everyone agrees on everything.
But they're on the same page about the situation.
Exactly. A shared understanding.
And it all comes back to that core idea, doesn't it? We learn in the reflection, not in the doing.
That's the fundamental truth. You can tell people forever, you should debrief. But it doesn't really sink in until they do it and see the results. Like in simulations, seeing the huge jump in performance from the first run to the last because of the debriefs in between.
The experience makes it stick.
The experience is everything. That's what makes it powerful.
Okay, so let's recap the key takeaways for everyone listening. Learning, fundamentally, it's about change, realizing something needs to change.
Right. And debriefs are the engine for that change. They need psychological safety. They need dedicated time, a clear structure.
And they have to be non-negotiable, right? A regular practice, not just for emergencies. Always focusing on what went well and why, what needs improving and how.
That positive framing is vital for continuous improvement.
So here's something for you to think about. What surprises, good or bad, are you maybe overlooking right now? In your work, your projects, maybe even your personal life? Where are those unexpected moments that could actually be gold mines for a debrief?
Yeah, think about how you could build in just a little more intentional reflection, maybe a quick personal debrief after a meeting, or suggesting a team debrief after finishing a phase of a project. It really is how you unlock that next level of learning and performance. It starts with taking the time to reflect.